Who is India's best wicketkeeper? It's almost for the first time that India has three wicketkeepers in each of the formats. We have Rishabh Pant in Test matches, we have KL Rahul in the ODIs, and we have Sanju Samson in the T20 format. And that got me wondering of the standard of wicketkeeping and has it fallen? And so then I thought, let's compare these three wicketkeepers, let's compare the technique and rate them. Of course, we also have Ishan Kishan and Dhruv Jurel and all of that in the mix, but currently these three wicketkeepers are starting in the playing 11. So I thought, let's just stick to them. But we also need a base to compare them to. And one of our finest wicketkeepers this country has produced and recently retired is Wriddhiman Saha, and he is the standard that I've chosen. Of course, we have MS Dhoni with the gloves against the spinners, but he's not so good with the fast bowlers. If you want a video on that, just that, let me know. And before we dive into this and before we talk about the standard and everything, hit that subscribe button. Now, before we talk about the standards, let's talk about the categories. Now, there are two categories, of course. One is spin and pace, but even under them we have few factors. Against the fast bowlers, we have the reach, how far they can go to either get a catch or stop the ball. We have the feet movement, which is very important. Now we come to the spin side of things. The first is stumping, how fast and effective are they with in terms of stumping, and the second is collecting the ball itself. Now it must sound easy, but we will get into it. And now we're going to rate each of these subcategories by 5, which means the total points you can gain in the end is 20. Now, first things first, right? Against pace, we have reach, and by that I mean this. Now we'll see Wriddhiman Saha with a spectacular catch, and this is exactly what reach is. His ability to dive as far as he possibly can to either take a catch or to stop the ball. Here he's taking 2 catches. It's 2 fantastic catches, and this is what I mean by reach. Easier said than done. Feet movement against the fast bowlers is almost the same thing. To be able to move towards the ball as quick as possible. Keeping against the fast bowlers in Asian conditions is relatively very easy because the ball hardly moves after it pitches. Whereas in England, however, the ball does move quite a bit after it pitches, which is also why it's a lot more difficult to be a wicketkeeper in England against the fast bowlers. But we're not going to take that into play just because all of these three wicketkeepers that we're comparing haven't done that really in England or South Africa and Australia consistently. So let's stick with the basics. Now that's fast bowling, that's simply understood. Now with spin, it becomes a little more complicated. Again, we come to Wriddhiman Saha, and this is Ravichandran Ashwin bowling. Something very important as a wicketkeeper is to make sure until the ball pitches, you are as low as possible. You're of course predicting the spin of the ball and all of that, but until the ball pitches, you're staying as low as you possibly can. Now you see Wriddhiman Saha here. He's very low. He hasn't moved up at all. He's waiting for the ball to pitch. Even here, right after the ball pitches is when he gets up, because as a wicketkeeper, you instinctively understand what the ball is going to do after you pitch it. When a spinner is delivering the ball, you try to read it off the hand or off the pitch. You mostly try to read it off the hand. And the second the ball pitches, you automatically almost understand what the ball is going to do because of the amount of practice you have done beforehand. Now, this is something to keep in mind because all three wicketkeepers that we're talking about, they do have a certain bit of a problem. Now, Saha waits for the ball to pitch. He predicts where the ball is going to go. Of course, it doesn't go to him this time around, but he is in line with the ball. He is in line even with the bounce. He did everything perfectly fine. Now, of course, to talk about stumping, we have to go to the one and only MS Dhoni. Something that he's very good at is making sure the trajectory of his hands is already going towards the stump even before he has collected the ball. Also, why he's so quick with it. He doesn't have a follow through, unlike a lot of other wicketkeepers. Whereas Dhoni, the trajectory of his hand, the movement of his hand is already towards the stump by the time the ball has come, even before the ball has come to him. Right. So we have set our standards. We have all seen what 5 out of 5 means to all of these guys. Wriddhiman Saha, while keeping to the fast bowlers, his feet movement against the spinners, and MS Dhoni stumping with the spinners. All of these is 5 out of 5. Now let's come down to the meat of it and let's talk about our current wicketkeepers. Now, an interesting observation in the Border Gavaskar Trophy that just got over was Rishabh Pant and his position to Jasprit Bumrah, which I still haven't understood, but let's try dissecting it a little bit. Now, this is the 2018-19 Border Gavaskar Trophy, and as you can see, Rishabh Pant is right outside off of the batter while Jasprit Bumrah is coming to bowl. Now, Rishabh Pant stays very still. He bends all the way down. He stays very still. And this is something you would expect from a wicketkeeper. This is absolutely fine. This is what you would do as a wicketkeeper. Except this time around, a lot of things changed. As you can see, Rishabh Pant's almost right behind the stumps. The gap between the wicketkeeper and the first slip is so large. And also, one more thing. Right before the ball is pitched, which is very, very late as a wicketkeeper, especially to a fast bowler like Jasprit Bumrah, he takes his left foot and takes a step towards his left hand side. Now, this isn't necessarily because of Jasprit Bumrah's angle. He does this time and again every single ball, regardless of the kind of angle Bumrah is bowling in. So, this is not an exception to this ball. He does this every single ball. And that is a bit of a problem. And we saw that in the Border Gavaskar Trophy as well. When there were deliveries that batters edged and it was going to Rishabh Pant's right hand side, he was either not able to reach it or had to dive it and did drop a few or did not even go and hope that the first slip went for it. Now, like I was saying, he takes his left foot, takes a step towards the left. Now, here's the problem, right? This is a big enough edge for the ball to go towards the second slip, but if it was a fine edge, the ball would go in the gap. Now, as a wicketkeeper or as a fielder that you must be, if you're taking a step towards the left and if the ball is suddenly going towards the right with that much pace, your ability to take a step towards the right becomes a lot more difficult. And Rishabh Pant has made himself and made his life a lot more difficult by doing this. Now, don't get me wrong, Rishabh Pant's reach is incredible. We've seen him take those diving catches and he has that. So we will give him 3 out of 5 for his reach, but 2 out of 5 for his feet movement against the fast bowlers. Now, Jasprit Bumrah being a senior man, you have to be able to keep right to him. And Rishabh Pant has struggled. He did struggle in the Border Gavaskar Trophy. If he continues to do what he's doing, he will continue to struggle. Now, that was against the fast bowlers. Rishabh Pant against the spinners is a story of its own because, of course, he is effective. But unlike a Saha who waits until the ball has pitched, Rishabh Pant does his own thing like he does with his batting. Now, as you can see, Akshar Patel's bowling and the ball hasn't pitched, but Rishabh Pant's all stood up. He's already ready. His hands are apart, which is debatable. You don't necessarily need your hands to be close, but Rishabh Pant's almost upright. The problem with this is he's trusting the pitch a lot. He's trusting the bounce, and this is even before the ball's pitched. Rishabh Pant is not low to the ground. Now, the problem with this is, like I said, he's trusting the ground a lot. He's trusting the pitch a lot. In case the ball goes slightly lower than he anticipates, there's no way he's catching the ball. There's no way he's doing anything about the ball, except, of course, in this delivery. And of course, he does get his stumping, but it is so risky for him to do this just because of his position. And it's not just in this match. We have seen this in test matches as well. But there are moments, especially in test matches, where he does stay low to the ground. Not as low as Riddhiman Saha, but low enough for him to be able to get the ball. Now, here you can see, of course, the ball doesn't go to Rishabh Pant. Let's just get that straight. But he is low to the ground. What concerns me is that his hands are always apart, but he is able to get the stumpings and get those catches. But there are a lot of moments where he misses out on the ball. And that's mainly because of his hands being apart. You would want your hands as close together as possible for as long as you possibly can. But he stays low to the ground, good enough. But here again, the chances of him catching the ball if Rachin Ravindra did miss would be so high. Just because of Rishabh Pant's position. He's expecting the ball to come to him at a certain level even before the ball has pitched. Now, I am being more and more critical because Rishabh Pant is the red ball test wicketkeeper, and it is important for him to get these small things right. But of course, the argument can also be made that I'm picking out small moments where he's making a mistake. Also, I have picked out this moment where Rishabh Pant gets things absolutely spot on. Not only does he read the ball off Aswin's hand, but he waits until the end. As you can see here, Rishabh Pant's he's up. Of course, he's up. Rishabh Pant's always up, and his hands are a little bit apart. But this is the lowest he stayed in all the footages that I've shown, waiting for the ball. He gets the ball at a perfect height, collects the ball, appeals for a wicket, and probably gets a wicket. But this is exactly what Rishabh Pant needs to be consistent with. And as a wicketkeeper and as a red ball wicketkeeper, of course it's tiresome. Of course it's gruesome on your legs and on the concentration and on your back. But you gotta remind yourself that you are playing for India and you should be able to do this consistently because any ball can be a wicket. Any drop catches or any missed stumpings, you might just lose the match for the team. Now, that being said, I give 3 out of 5 to Rishabh Pant stumping just because he has a very MS Dhoni-like stumping. He is moving towards the ball even before the ball has reached to him. Now, I'll give 4 out of 5 to Rishabh Pant's feet and his ability to catch the ball against the spinners as a wicketkeeper just because he's so agile and his ability to move behind the stumps against the spinners is just very, very good. Now, from the red ball wicketkeeper Rishabh Pant, we move to the ODI wicketkeeper, that is KL Rahul. And man, oh man, does he have problems against fast bowlers. I don't like starting with this, but we have to start with this. This is the 2023 World Cup final against Australia. Of course, until the final, he did have a good tournament as a wicketkeeper. He got splendid catches. So for his reach straight up against the fast bowlers, I give it 3 out of 5. A disclaimer, I've given all 3 wicketkeepers 3 out of 5 on reach just because they're athletes, and even if they're not a wicketkeeper, they are fielders and they should be able to reach. So I'm not going to highly rate them until they do something very, very extraordinary. Now, something KL Rahul does struggle with is his feet movement against the fast bowlers, and it was very, very evident against Australia in the 2023 World Cup final. He not only gets up too quick, there are moments where he gets up too late and he misses the ball completely, and it's quite bizarre. Of course, in the 2023 World Cup final, there were few balls that swung in and swung out very, very late, so I'm not going to be critical on that. But even in the first ODI against England in the ongoing series, there were a few moments where KL Rahul gave a few byes away and he just could not judge the ball. It's something KL Rahul does struggle with, and I'm hoping he does improve on. So even though I gave him 3 out of 5 for his reach, I gave him 2 out of 5 for his feet movement against the fast bowlers, for consistently being able to stop it. And he is not as consistent as you'd like him to be. Again, now that being said, KL Rahul against the spinners as a wicketkeeper is a beast. Now, of course, you can always find footage where KL Rahul is making a mistake against the spinners and is making the same mistake that I talked about with Rishabh Pant. But KL Rahul on a consistent basis is a lot more accurate against the spinners, is a lot more solid against the spinners than he's not. This is one of the examples 5 years ago, the first ODI against New Zealand in 2020, where Kuldeep Yadav's bowling and KL Rahul has hardly moved before the ball has pitched. Of course, his hands might be a little apart, but he's still as low until the ball has pitched. This you see right here is right when the ball has pitched, right when a wicketkeeper assumes where the ball is going to go. But this is solid. This is exactly what you would need to do as a wicketkeeper. To stay as low as possible, to wait for the ball to do its thing before you commit as a wicketkeeper. And he's able to get that stumping done. Now, again, he is very MS Dhoni-like. MS Dhoni almost created a culture with Indian wicketkeepers to be able to move towards the stumps with your hands even before you have collected the ball. And this is exactly what he does. Every stumping of his is something I highly rate, because of which I've given him a 4 out of 5. But there are moments with KL Rahul's feed movement against the spinners where he struggles to go down the leg side. And a lot of the times, the bowler apologizes because, of course, it's a wide, but of course, it's going down leg. But as a wicketkeeper, you need to be able to stop that. Now, this isn't exactly a wide delivery, but as you can see, KL Rahul does well enough to stay low, and I mean, he's possibly the lowest as compared to Rishabh Pant, but the ball spins and you can see KL Rahul just stand there. He has no intention to move at all. If this was a ball towards the off stump, of course KL Rahul would move, but if the ball had spun the way it did right now, there's no way KL Rahul's going down the leg side to stop the ball, and this is something he struggles with a lot against the spinners. For him to possibly move down the leg side to stop the ball, we have seen a lot of practice sessions of him where he is practicing this, but it's something KL Rahul will need to continue to improve on. But because of this, I've given him a 2 out of 5 on the feet movement front against the spinners. Now, Rishabh Pant's total is 12 out of 20 and KL Rahul's total is 11 out of 20, just one below Rishabh Pant. Now, even though on paper Rishabh Pant might be a far better wicket keeper, there are few things that KL Rahul does that might just keep him close to Rishabh Pant. Now we come to the fan favorite Sanju Samson, the wicket keeper in the T20 format. Now again, of course, for the reach, I give him 3 out of 5 because again, he is a good athlete. He's taken good catches. He's dived around and done everything right. But even in those diving catches, there are few technical errors. He is very similar to Rishabh Pant against the fast bowlers in the sense that there are times when he takes his left foot and takes a step towards the left, because of which he is wrong-footed while going towards the right. So a lot of the times when you see Rishabh Pant or Sanju Samson dive towards the right, it's also because they are wrong-footed and they will be far because of that step they take towards the left. Not saying that those catches are easy, but they could make it easier for themselves if they didn't take that step towards the left. Now, because of this, I give Sanju Samson's reach and feet movement against the fast bowlers a 3 out of 5. Now, Sanju Samson against the spinners is a tale I don't really want to tell, but then I have to go with it, so hear me out. Now, something that I've been reiterating a lot is that when you're wicket keeping against the spinners, you have to wait until the end. You have to wait until the ball has pitched, or even right before the ball has pitched. We saw Rishabh Pant doing an outrageous take. Even though he got a stumping, it was disastrous. But Rishabh Pant more often than not is able to collect the ball, whereas Sanju Samson is again able to collect the ball, but there will be a time when he struggles to do that also. Because like Rishabh Pant, even Sanju Samson, even before the ball has pitched, is almost upright. There are times when he's almost standing straight and not judging the ball as much as he should. Also, every time you see Sanju Samson collecting the ball against the spinner, it almost feels like he is a second late and he's sighting the ball right in the end. So if you see his gloves, he's not collecting it cleanly. It almost feels like at the last second he's trying to grab the ball, and because of this, there are times when he also misses out on the ball. Now, if you look at this closely, in just the last second, like there's a small second where he's trying to grab at the ball. He's not completely holding on to the ball, and he's trying to protect himself from dropping the ball. It's not just once or twice, but every time he collects a ball against a spinner, it almost seems like he is doing this. Now, another instance is the South African series in South Africa last year, where Varun Chakravarti is bowling. Of course, it's a little more difficult to pick someone like a Varun Chakravarti, but if you are a wicketkeeper, especially from the same side, you almost expect your wicketkeepers to be able to read. Of course, it's not easy, but you do expect it. Now again, here we see Sanju Samson not entirely being convinced of him collecting the ball. It's almost a last minute thing. Even the side view, you can see that he has misread the amount of bounce the ball is going to get, which is also why you see the angle of the glove and where the ball is going to go, and he collects it way below than he himself expected, and there will be a time when he starts missing these balls, and he's able to get that stumping done. Of course, he's able to get it done, so we're good to go. For him to be more consistent and for him to be a wicketkeeper in the longer formats, he will need to take care of this. He's lucky that this is the T20 format and you're not going to get as many stumping chances or even caught behinds. But if he wants to get into the longer formats, he will need to be able to do this. Now, interestingly enough, I found a very old Sanju Samson video where he's wicket keeping. Now, this I would give 5 out of 5 just because of how low he is until the ball has pitched and even after the ball has pitched. And he's doing such great work as a wicketkeeper because he's staying low to the ground even after the ball has pitched. This is exactly what you need to do as a wicketkeeper. Now, I don't blame Sanju Samson because he's playing the T20 format. Everything is chaotic. And of course, you're not going to be technically as solid as you would like to be. Also, why we saw Rishabh Pant in that take as well in the T20 match. But you would want to be as consistent as possible. Now, on to the ratings. Against the spinners, his feet movement, I give Sanju Samson a 2 out of 5. And his stumping a 2 out of 5. Of course, he's able to do it, but he's technically just not there yet, which makes Sanju Samson's total the lowest, that is 10 out of 20. Now, yes, I am harsh on these guys, and the marks clearly says so, but that's because they're Indian wicket keepers. They're wicket keeping for the Indian cricket team, and so you have to be harsh. Even the smallest thing that you could possibly improve on, you should be able to improve on it. When you look at historical stats, all of these 3 wicket keepers are in the top 20 list of dismissals in all of the formats combined, which is great. Rishabh Pant is even in the top 5 of this list. Now, all they need to do is continue improving, continue working on the smaller things so that by the end of their career, they're known more than just for being a batter, but also great wicket keepers. But again, as batters and bowlers, as a Steve Smith or a Jasprit Bumrah, your technique can be different. And we've seen that with so many wicket keepers over the years. And I'm not saying they need to have perfect technique. I'm just saying they need to tighten the technique that they have to be able to be more successful. Now, that is what this video is about. Comparing these 3 wicket keepers, not necessarily saying one is better than the other because all of them have their strengths and weaknesses, but how they need to work on certain things to be better than the wicket keepers around the world. Thank you so much for watching. If you have liked this video, like, share, and subscribe, all that good stuff. We put out videos every Tuesdays and Fridays. If you haven't followed us on social media, all of our links are in the description below. We have Instagram, Twitter, and a newsletter. So if you haven't subscribed to our newsletter, do that too. You get updates that no one else will. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.